Hello, everyone, and welcome to Electronic A&S Documentation, Display, and More. My name is Doña Mariana Ruiz de Medina, and many of you may know me as the editor of The Oak, which is Atlantea's Arts and Sciences newsletter. For this class, I actually want to introduce myself mundanely a little bit because I think it's very salient to some of the things we're going to talk about. My name is Emily Pretzloff, and I have absolutely no background in tech. I am a farmer, and I have a background in sustainable agriculture, and everything we're going to talk about is entirely self-taught. I am basically coding illiterate, and so all of the tools that we're going to focus on are going to be things that you do not have to be really, really good with computers to use. The main thing that I want people to be able to take away from this is that electronic arts and sciences is accessible to anybody who wants it to be, and I'm really excited to get to talk to all of you today about how we can make that happen for anybody who wants to participate in electronic arts and sciences. Let me share my screen really quickly. All right. Can everybody see this presentation? Alessandra? Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So today's agenda is going to go over a couple of different things. Why bother doing arts and sciences? I'm going to say digitally because I don't entirely mean online, but I mostly do. But why would you bother? Where can you put those things for both you and other people's usage? Tools and tips for creating visual, written, and video content, and some lessons learned from ESCA and participating in arts and sciences online. If we get through all of that with ample time, I'm also going to go through a couple of examples, both of my own personal usage as well as the Oak, so that you can see some of these practices in action. So why do arts and sciences online? And for me, it comes down to three major reasons. Visibility of both your art and the arts of others. Believe it or not, putting your art online encourages more people to do so that more people can participate in online arts and sciences. In doing so, you have opportunities to meet and get to know people from all over the known world, which makes you yourself a better artisan by learning from their experiences, as well as more able to share your own learning and experiences. It also helps lesser known forms of arts and sciences come to a bit of a spotlight because there are ways of being an advocate or a proponent of those lesser known forms of arts and sciences, digitally more so than in person sometimes, because you can connect to larger communities of people who may be interested in seeing those forms of arts and sciences. Second is accessibility. There are a lot of reasons that someone might not be able to get to an event in person. There are going to be a lot of reasons that people who may be able to get to an event cannot interact with your arts and sciences in the form of a written paper. There are a lot of people for whom writing that paper is not an option. And each of those groups of people still deserves and should be able to enjoy arts and sciences as much as any other group. So doing arts and sciences digitally expands the reach of content to people who may not be able to come in person, allows those who can't sit and read a 10, 15-page paper to find other ways of getting that information, and it also opens up non-traditional forms of documentation. Lastly is record keeping. I'm a project manager by in my mundane life, so you're going to see this theme over and over again is you become a better artisan the more of your own records you can access, organize, and maintain. So you can track your own project and personal growth over time. Repositories for resources and materials in the form of not just art and pictures, but also managing citations. And a framework for A&S. Really, you can start leveraging a lot more templates if you're really just starting to dip your toes into doing documentation. You have a lot more access to guiding how you're going to format something. This presentation is a great example. This is a template on Canva. I am not this good at making PowerPoints. I have never been this good at making PowerPoints, but Canva and other frameworks like that sure make it easy to look like I am. So why do digital arts and sciences on a personal level? Again, for project management, I spent almost all of my life in spreadsheets. It's how I organize my research. It's how I organize my process documentation. And for me, having that resource immediately available, I use Google Sheets and the Google Suite for that, but it improves the quality of my documentation because I can more readily track where each individual piece of information I need is and where it's going. I can see how a project is progressing when I hit that wall of I can't get through this last 10%. And in keeping all of that information and transcribing it, going back and forth to the visual resources, you more readily cement the skills you learn into place. It's a lot like the recopying of your notes when you're actually writing physical notes. Another aspect is resource management. So I use digital tools to organize all of my process photos into albums so that I can actually see that process step by step by step. I know where to find it again. I have ways of, trying to remember, I did this project 5 years ago. It had this word in it, but I can't seem to remember what else about it. I can go and actually search all of my materials to relocate some of those resources that I might want to use. Another really big one for that is citation management. There are a lot of tools online for managing citations and libraries of citations. And I will say more than once throughout this, proper citation matters. I had a problem with this just today. I had to go back to an old project and I didn't properly cite a picture in that project that I needed to use. And being able to go through to a spreadsheet where I have otherwise organized individual citations and find that citation in that spreadsheet that was not properly cited in my documentation is the only way I would have been able to find that resource again. And lastly is tracking personal growth. Through each individual project you do is going to get you new skills, and being able to show that to yourself and others can really help you see your trajectory as an artisan, both in a project and from the first day you chose to pick up a needle to sew garb, or the first time you tried Scribble. Being able to see that growth is, I think, to me, one of the best things about doing arts and sciences online. Because I get to go back and look at some of these things like, oh my goodness, that was a terrible decision. But today I get to make better ones because I can see where I made wrong decisions in the past. Minor soapbox time. Personal branding is not a dirty word, nor should it be in the SCA. As we go through all of these resources, if you want to do this for awards, if you want to do this to win competitions, I will never be the person to tell you that that is not the right way to do arts and sciences. You are allowed to want to do this for however you like. We could do an entire class on personal branding in the SCA and some of the case studies that have been really, really effective. But don't be afraid of leaning into some of that. The digital world is a great way to do that, and you will see both on my personal site as well as a variety of other places that people do this a lot, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. So at a slightly bigger level, why would you do digital arts and sciences as a group? A little bit about me in the SCA is I stepped up as my Barony's Minister of Arts and Sciences pretty much at the start of the pandemic. And in doing so, we had to learn really, really quickly, how do we make, the Barony keep going in a time when the Barony cannot meet, could not be together, could not enjoy arts and sciences in the way that we have done so previously. And doing arts and sciences digitally gave us an opportunity to do that. We were able to pivot to online classes. We were able to use websites to do online displays and competitions and still keep people engaged and participating, even at a time when the SCA as a whole was reevaluating how do you participate in the SCA. If you're an officer, doing stuff online is a great way to make reportability really, really easy. You want to handle your quarterly reports in 5 minutes, do everything online. Your chroniclers will also thank you, because you can have stuff for your baronial, for your kingdom level newsletters much more easily if it's already digitized. Some of the best, results of online arts and sciences is virtual university. We have met, I have been to exactly 2 in-person universities in my tenure with the SCA, but I've still managed to go to hundreds of hours of classes, enjoy instructors from all over the world, and grow immensely both as an artisan and in the SCA because of online learning with the University of Atlantia. So I highly, highly encourage, now that we're coming back in person as well, to keep leveraging these lessons that we learned during the pandemic, to keep arts and sciences engaged over time at a local, regional, and kingdom level. Are there any questions so far?
Not yet.
Wonderful. All right. So now we're going to move on to places to put your arts and sciences. And in this section, I really want to emphasize, this isn't just places to put your arts and sciences that other people can see. It's places to put your arts and sciences for you as well. The kinds of places are pretty straightforward. They're exactly what you expect me to say here. You can put it on social media. I use the Google suite of tools extensively. You can use blogs and personal websites. And I also want to make a plug for the Atlantean Wiki, which is a great tool that we will discuss a little bit more in depth. But we'll start with social media. There are pros and cons here. Social media is great for everybody is familiar with these tools, particularly the various tools in the Meta platform, the connectivity between Facebook and Instagram, and there are a lot of ways that the accessibility and the regular use of these tools make them a great starting point. You can also curate access. If you want to keep your information and the kinds of art that you want to share with the world more private, you can much more easily regulate who has access to your content on social media than you can on a website. If I'm putting something on my website, I am putting it out to the world, and I have to be okay with that. Most social media is free. There are some that you pay for. There are certain tools on those social media platforms that you might pay for, but it is a great place to start if you don't necessarily want to start paying for a place to host your ANS. Most of us are using social media on a nearly daily, if not more frequent basis, and many of those social media platforms have tools that will help you polish up some of what you're looking at, like photo editing, like filters, like some of the templates that you see in TikTok and Reels. Cons is you have a much more limited audience. If you're controlling access to your social media, you are also gatekeeping that access. So if I am on the Pearl list trying to learn about a specific candidate and all they do is post their stuff on their social media and we're not friends, I don't have a way to see what they have done. The content creator mentality is another can of worms we're not going to get too deep into, but there is a tendency for social media to really make us think that we have to constantly be creating, to pit people against each other in terms of the amount and the quality of the creation, and get you away from the I'm doing this art and this science and documenting it because I enjoy doing that, and kind of nudge you into the I'm doing it because the algorithm says I have to do it. There are also highly curated views on social media. Most people don't post their failures on social media. We see the world through rose-colored glasses on social media all the time. And I think some of the nitty-gritty of arts and sciences is what makes for the best learning process. So that very constrained view of the process can be a detriment. And then there is as an officer of the Minister of Arts and Sciences Office of the Kingdom of Atlantia, there are certain things that I have to be very careful about on my own social media because I don't want it to seem like I am speaking for the office as the editor of the Oak. So when you do have your own social media and you do use your social media for official positions like that, you have to be careful of that divide, which is generally why I don't love using social media as my main platform for arts and sciences. You can do it, but I don't recommend it. Blogs, personal websites, and more. I've used a variety of tools over the years. I have said before, I make extensive use of the Google Suite. I don't use Google Pages, but I have known people that have done so very successfully. There are some really great tools in the Google Pages, but I absolutely love G Suite for Google Drive and all of the tools in Google Drive. Almost all of my personal content is hosted in Google Drive and linked to elsewhere. Because there's a lot of editability. I can keep going back and improving my content in a way that it is centralized, it is organized, and I can control the editing access a lot more easily that way. You'll see on my personal website when we get there that pretty much everything is a link to a Google Sheet or a Google Doc or a PDF that is in my Google Drive. The Oak, however, is hosted on WordPress, which is one of the more common personal website platforms and blog platforms. All of the Kingdom of Atlantia websites are hosted via WordPress, and that has some great pros and cons. WordPress is really, really easy to pick up, but it is really hard to master. WordPress has a lot of, I'm going to call them eccentricities, and all of the good and the bad that comes with it. But it is not hard to learn how to use WordPress at a very basic level. The same thing with Wix. What you see here is my first SCA website that is now defunct and was a mess. Mostly because at that time I was still learning how to organize a website in a way that actually worked. But I also find that the editor with Wix is a little bit less flexible and a little bit less customizable than Squarespace, which is what I switched to later. The great thing about Wix, though, is you get a lot for the free plan. Wix is a great place to start for free options, and for what it does at the free level, if you never wanted to pay a cent for doing your ANS online, Wix would be where I told you to go. If you're willing to make a little bit more of an investment, Squarespace. I use Squarespace to both register my domain name and host my website. I am starting to use it for its new courses feature, which is another paid feature, but I love using Squarespace. I've been on Squarespace for about 3 years now, and it is a really intuitive platform. The WYSIWYG editors are very easy to use. The templates are highly customizable, and they have a lot of really great features for tracking both a blog, for research, for galleries of pictures. And I really like a lot of the security features that Squarespace has put into place, especially as they have started introducing more commerce features. I highly recommend Squarespace to just about anybody that wants to consider doing a more extensive website platform, especially if you want to allow people to subscribe to a regular blog or something like that, if nothing else for some of the data privacy considerations. Next is the Atlantean Wiki. This is a really wonderful tool, as I think a lot of us end up using it more as a static tool than as a regular repository, but there are some users on the Atlantean Wiki that do use it as their primary hosting for their arts and sciences. It can take pictures, it can take text, it can take video links, and anybody in Atlantia can have one. It is very easy to sign up. I won't walk you through all of that today, but I highly recommend getting yourself an Atlantean Wiki if you so choose. You don't need to know how to code to use one. The wonderful thing about the wiki is being able to go into somebody else's profile, say, hey, I like that thing, and being able to take their code. I did not do any of the coding and formatting on my Atlantean Wiki myself. I absolutely just copied and pasted formatting from other people's wikis that I liked. It can be a standalone repository of your digital arts and sciences, or it can be used in conjunction with other platforms. Mine mainly links to my main website. There is a myth that it is not extensively adopted. There are plenty of people on the Atlantean Wiki. It is a growing platform, though, which means there are great opportunities for expanding articles on different forms of arts and sciences. If there's a form of arts and sciences that you're really excited about and want to share resources for, the wiki can be a great place to do that. There are individual personal pages, there are baronial pages, there are household pages, but the wiki is a great starting place and has a lot of those, pros and cons of actual Wikipedia for public editing purposes. But I highly recommend everybody just at least sets theirs up. How are we doing so far, Alessandra?
We're doing well. I'm sorry, just had a bunch of people come in.
Mm. Okay, well, then we can wait until the next pause for questions. Let me just grab some water. So, tools for electronic arts and sciences. What we're going to go through in this section are tools that I've used in the past. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, some of them can be either. We'll go over tools for visual content, written content, and video content. But there are a whole slew of things that I'm not including here. These are just some of my favorites. So starting off with visual content. We've got a few things going on here, and we're going to start with my favorite, which is Canva. Canva can be free or paid. There are some limited template options if you are on the free version of Canva, but I use Canva for all of my university slides. I use it for all of my display signs in person. Canva is also great for producing your own QR codes, which is a great way to link your in-person arts and sciences with your electronic arts and sciences. Pretty much every display I do, I try to include a QR code for my more extensive documentation for the people that might not necessarily want to read through it right that second. The next tools I want to talk about are Photoshop and Lightroom. These are part of the Adobe suite and do cost money to use. But they are fantastic tools for visual editing and visual creation. I'm not great at either of those things, so I will admit that I don't use these tools super extensively. I use Google Photos. I am not a graphic designer. I am not a photographer. I take photos on my phone, I put it in Google Photos, and if I need to adjust it, Google Photos does enough for me. When it does not, there is this guy right down here. And that is GIMP, which is a free version and or free visual editor, similar to Photoshop. It is not as intuitive in some ways as Photoshop, but it is workable. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. And last but not least is Unsplash. This is one that I'm going to caution isn't as useful for the SCA as it is for other online content creation, but it is a great place to get free usable images that are not necessarily gatekept by any sort of image ownership. There are paid subscriptions for more extensive image libraries within Unsplash, but this is a great place to get royalty-free images. Again, it's not as useful in SCA contexts all the time, but it can be a great starting place. Next is written tools, and there's really only two that I want to focus on here. Grammarly being one of them. Grammarly has both free and paid options, but if you are using any sort of word processor, Grammarly is a great way to just level up your game a little bit in terms of editing capabilities. They do use some modeling and AI features to enhance readability. If you're doing it online, there are SEO or search engine optimization tools that Grammarly does allow for. That is a paid feature, but it can be a really great way to just take your writing to the next level. The other tool I want to talk about is Otter AI, which is I have primarily used in the past as a transcription tool. So this is a great tool for people who aren't wonderful necessarily at writing, but do want to talk about their art. If you are the kind of person that doesn't necessarily want to sit down and write a paper, you can talk and record a audio of you talking about your art. Use Otter AI, that'll turn that into writing, and then that can be put into something like Grammarly or worked with another person who might be a little bit better at writing than you to format that into something that is a more usable written source. It's also great for doing things like interviews. I have used it in the past on previously recorded classes to help write closed captions and a transcript for video courses. And next up is video content. Oh, too fast? Sorry about that. Primarily for recorded classes, I like to use CapCut. It is both an online tool and a program. There are free options, there are paid options, but it is for editing video content. We can't talk about video arts and sciences without talking about TikTok and Reels. If your aim is to really lean into that content creation or to do less formal, shorter form content creation, TikTok and Reels are great ways to do that. You can record outside of the app, you can record inside of the app, you can edit inside of the apps, and they can be a really great way to dip your toe into video content. The thing that I should note there, though, is that there are a lot of people who can't use TikTok for whatever reason. I'll use my husband as an example, who is a federal contractor who isn't allowed to have TikTok on any of his devices. You do have to keep kind of those constraints in mind when you're leaning into the more social media aspects of video content creation. However, Zoom is another great way to do video content creation, like this class, which we are recording to be put onto YouTube, to be put onto my own website as a recorded course. You can use Zoom to record slide decks like this with a variety of camera setups. You can use Zoom to record demos. You can also use Zoom's recording abilities to help do closed captioning if you wanted to write like a script for your class. I've used Zoom and CapCut together before to take a recorded class that I presented live at a university, get a transcript of what I said, turn that into a script, and then record a cleaner version, which totally works. And it turned a really nice class into an even better class that is now just evergreen content that I can point to. And last but not least is Adobe Premiere, which is Adobe's version of a video editor. And much like Photoshop and Lightroom, does cost money. The Adobe suite is kind of fun because I know there is a Kickstarter that is in beta testing right now called Abode by Stuart Semple, who is working on making less expensive and more accessible versions of the entirety of the Adobe suite, but that is still in beta testing. So keep an eye out for that, because that should be a fun new resource in both visual and video content within the next couple of years. Any questions so far?
No, there's a lot of good comments on here, though.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to reading them. All right, so let's wrap up with lessons learned from the ESCA. And if you take away nothing else from this class, I want to talk about these 5 lessons that I've learned since doing electronic arts and sciences. First and foremost, perfect is the enemy of done. This is a lesson that is really applicable to arts and sciences, even outside of the digital world, but there is never going to be a solution that is the absolute perfect solution for your needs. It just doesn't happen. That is the reality of working with software and with electronic tools that you didn't build yourself. Don't let that stop you from trying electronic documentation and electronic arts and sciences. Even if nothing is ever perfect, something is going to come pretty darn close. And you'll be able to find a way to make that work for you. So give it a shot, even if there is, something that's just a little off. Second is the saying, that's how that's always been done, is not always how it has to be done. What's most important in electronic arts and sciences is that it works for you. If it does not work for your art, if it does not work for your way of learning, if it does not work for your way of communication, don't do it. Just because there is something that I have done or somebody else has done that has worked for them does not mean that is the only way that is a right way to do something. If you find a tool, if you find a method, if you find a strategy for doing this that works for you, do it that way. The most important thing that you can do is to try it and give it a go and bring attention to that, different way of thinking to electronic arts and sciences. Take lots and lots of pictures. The algorithms on social medias love pictures. people love pictures. Pictures are a great way of recording things. Pictures are also a lot faster than taking a written note, either physically or online or electronically. You can whip out your camera, snap a picture, and move on in seconds instead of actually having to type it out. I highly recommend taking lots of pictures and coming back to those pictures. That said, just because something is not visible or tangible does not mean it is a less valuable form of arts and sciences. Research is arts and sciences. Research papers are arts and sciences. And just because you are doing something that does not create a physical object does not mean that arts and science is not valuable. So just because you might not be able to take pictures of something shouldn't stop you from trying it as well. And last but not least, cite all your sources. Academic honesty is not just about you being honest and as an artisan, but it also helps you go back to previous research and learn from it and apply it to other situations. Cite all your sources. It doesn't matter how you cite your sources as long as you do. All right, so that is the end of this slide deck. Do we have any questions so far?
No, some great comments. I suggest that people want to consider saving the chat.
Yes. All right. So this is how you can get in touch with me, either as me or as the editor of the Oak. But since I still have some time, I want to actually show you some options for arts and sciences online. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide deck, but I will send the link to the PDF in my Google Drive in the chat in just a moment.
Mariana, there is one question.
Yeah.
Came up. Are there better ways to cite visually?
I guess I wonder, wait, are you talking about citing in pictures or citing in video?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I will try to answer the best I can then, is if you're taking pictures and you're presenting something as like a gallery, I would probably just pop in the caption of, you know, I looked at this book, or this is from this museum on this day. And if you can take a picture of, you know, whatever museum plaque is next to the item and include that in a gallery, that's a great way of doing it. In video, you can just straight up say, I read Ruth Matilda Anderson's Hispanic costuming, and this is what I learned. That is a valid way of citing your sources. It's not super extensive. It doesn't tell people nearly like as much information as they might want, but it is a way of attributing somebody else's scholarship in a non-written form. I'm going to stop sharing really quickly.
Yes, I think you answered that, because the clarification of the question is something more visual than old school bibliography.
Wonderful. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we got that. Now we're going to share, I'm going to share my screen again and start with a couple of examples of arts and sciences online. And this presentation is one of them. This presentation is run entirely out of Canva. It was built in Canva. It was built on a Canva template. I did not do any of the fancy moving stuff around. I didn't even create the template. This is all Canva. And I cannot encourage the use of Canva enough. It has been great for not just this, but for creating displays, creating QR codes. I even made my SCA business cards on Canva. If you don't have a Canva account, you can log in with your email, you can log in with social media. But seriously, check it out, because it makes you feel way more on top of it than, you know, I know I have no right to be, because I have no eye for digital design. But next up we have the Oak. The Oak is run on WordPress. I am the editor, but really I have a fantastic team of people that have made this happen. So much more than just me doing something. Most of what I do as the editor is talk to artisans and say, hey, do you want to, you know, submit something? Making it look pretty, making it work has been the work of a fantastic team. And the Oak is a great place for somebody who wants to dip their toes into documentation online, but isn't necessarily ready to set themselves up and get started on their own. absolutely anybody can submit an article to the Oak. The Oak can host, as you can see, pictures of people's work. The Oak can host videos. The Oak can host written papers and so much more. This is, and really what we do as the team for the Oak is editing for grammar, editing for clarity. But the Oak is here to show off the work of artisans at the level that the artisan is at. So orders can come look here if somebody is, up for a polling or is up for consideration, or somebody just wants to point to like, hey, my friend did this really cool thing. The Oak is a great place to do that. It is also searchable and organized by tabs. You can subscribe to the Oak. And like I said, just about any form of arts and sciences has a place here. And I absolutely invite all of the attendees, submit something. We want anything and everything. We get to do really cool things like interview people in the populace who have done fun stuff if my computer wants to cooperate. And these were interviews that I got to sit down and just talk to someone about their arts and sciences and what they do. And so you don't have to write anything. I am happy to hop on a Zoom and have a conversation, and we can share your art that way as well. Another great resource is the Atlantean Wiki. This is my page. As you can see, there's not a lot here, mostly because it's just, please go to my website. But I didn't do any of this. I copied and pasted so much of this formatting from other people. I didn't even make this image. A very good friend of mine was able to do that for me because, again, this is not my thing. But it's a really great place to, give the really high bullet points. I'm not going to show anybody else's right now because I haven't gotten permissions for that for this class, but I highly recommend poking around a couple of other examples because at the very least, I can think of 2 people that use the wiki as one of their main repositories for their arts and sciences, and I'd be happy to share those privately. And last but not least is my website. So this is a website hosted on Squarespace. I mostly use it for blogging purposes because making myself write something every single month keeps me on track for forcing myself to write something every single month. But none of this was coding. This was all, I saw a spot, I stuck a picture in, I added my own text. All of these images are my own. And I can do some really cool stuff, like host my own recorded classes. I don't have a YouTube channel, unlike my Laurel Beatrice, who does have a YouTube channel of her own. But this gives me a great place to stick one of my favorite classes that I do, which is talking about Spanish food in the 15th and 16th century. But this is the class that I mentioned when I said I recorded this in Zoom. I put it into CapCut, took the transcription out of CapCut to re-record a much cleaner scripted version of this class. But it also allows me to link to my handout, which is, as you can see, in Google Drive. But this controls who can edit and who can access that really easily, and gives me a place that I can keep it very evergreen and update it as I improve the materials in this course. But we can see the slide deck, which also made in Canva, and additional documentation that was for a totally different project, also linked in one place. There are a variety of different, I keep all of my classes on this site. So you can see this class is right here, ready to go. This link will take you to the PDF of the slides that we viewed today, also hosted on Google Drive. But it keeps a running timeline of all of my courses, everything I have taught over the years, which is a really great way for me to see that, like, my first course was given, I think, at our first virtual university while I had a fever. And it's great to go back and be able to look at that and see how much I have grown as an instructor and as a researcher and artisan over time. It also is a great place for me to host my various spreadsheets. I do a lot of art in spreadsheets. I do a lot of art history and a lot of learning about art in spreadsheets because I'm an incredibly data-driven person. Knowing what makes an item, what that item is really important to me. But I can see these spreadsheets, I can actually show these spreadsheets here in a way that like nobody wants to actually page through something that would be like, I think some of them came out to 12 printed pages if I wanted to print them. Nobody wants to actually read that. I don't want to read that, but I do want to be able to come back to and show and see that. And so doing this online, doing this digitally allows me to do that. It also allows me to keep timesheets. I record a timesheet for each of my projects that I do so that I can have really detailed process documentation because I'm not the kind of person that can go back and say, this is what I did if I haven't already written that down. And doing this online is really the only way I could do something like that. And last but not least is a blog. I publish this blog on a monthly basis. I make sure that I publish this blog on a monthly basis to keep track of, what have I done each month? What have I learned each month? But being able to go back to each of these blog posts or search in these blog posts by tag of, I want to see every single post where I mentioned this skirt, I can. Which is it's a fantastic way of going back to, like, if I'm writing something, this is part of a Persona Pentathlon entry for our upcoming Kingdom Arts and Sciences Festival. And so while I am writing out that documentation for this skirt and this jacket and these weird shoes, I can go back with the tags and see every single one of my blog posts in which I discussed these items. And it makes my documentation even better because I can go back and see what was I thinking about these in December. What did I do in December? What did I learn in December? In a way that if I didn't have a place to record it that I couldn't go back and search, I would never remember. So that really covers a lot of what I wanted to share. But I'd love to open it up to everybody. We can stop recording now if you'd like, Alessandra. But open it up to any questions, any thoughts from the group.